Okay, hello world, and welcome to our tutorial on how to build an insertion sort in Java. So we're going to build an insertion sort algorithm implemented with an array, and I'll walk you through every step of the coding process with Eclipse and Java. So the first thing, let's go to our workbench, and I'm starting a new fresh project here. So I'll go to File, New, Java Project. And here I'll just select insertion sort sort and finish. Alright, now in here I'm gonna go to my source folder, right click, new class. We're gonna call that class insertion sort as well. Alright, so now I have a class and I have it set up right here. Now before we start, probably it's gonna be really hard to see, so I'm gonna go Window, Preferences, General, Appearance, Colors and Fonts, Java. Edit the Java text font just to make it a little bigger so you can easily read what we're doing. And there, much better. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna do is, since we're doing this in Java, we need to have our public static void main method with a string array of arguments. So this is just syntax for Java, right? Now, since we want to have this cleaned up, we're going to use several methods, alright? So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to declare an array right here, an array of integers. We're going to call that A. And it's going to be equals to a new integer array of size 10, just for starters. Alright. Now we want to print the array before and after sorting, just to make sure that we're doing the right things. So let's do a method to do that real quick. So let's type public public static void print array, and it's going to receive an integer array called b. Right, so it's going to receive an integer array as parameter, and basically the way we're going to print this, it's with the basic for loop. So this is then b dot length and I plus plus. Alright, so this for loop is going to traverse the whole array, and what we're going to do is system.out.println, and then we're just going to print the ith element at b. So that's basically it. Now I want to put it a little nicer, so I'm just going to put a blank space here so that there's a separation between each element of the array. Alright, so another thing we're going to want to do is we're going to have to assign some numbers to this. Now for 10 it's not that hard, but if we want to assign 1,000 elements or 100,000, it's going to take a while. So basically we're going to do a method for that too. The way we're going to do it is we're going to copy this method right here, and instead of print we're going to call it populate A. So it's going to receive an integer array, but this time we're actually going to return not void but an integer array as well, because we want to return the array that contains all the elements. Alright, now the way we're going to populate that, instead of just printing the values, we're going to stick with the bi, and we're going to use simple Java implemented math, which is the random number. So here we go. And we're going to pick random numbers, in this case from 0 to 100. Right? So this is just basically Java's math implementation. It's getting a random number, and by multiplying it by 100, it's basically giving us random numbers from 1 to 100. If you want to change this to another number, that's perfectly fine. And one last thing we need to do here is, of course, we need to return the array with the elements. Alright? So far we're doing good. We can print it, we can populate the array. Now let's go to the actual sort. Before we start sorting things around here, let me pull this all to the left, this all to the right. Alright. So let's populate and print the array and make sure that works. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna simply call our method, which is populate a, and we're gonna send our array, our empty array a, right? So this should actually be calling this method down here and populating it with random numbers. We want to check if that's actually happening, so we're also going to use the print array method with a. Now let's click here on run. Let's just say OK, and down here we can see, or we can barely see, that we're actually having some numbers right here. Alright, so probably I don't want to print them in a list, so I'm just deleting the print line so we can see them. That's better. Alright, so now we have an array of unsorted elements. So I guess you now want to do the insertion sort. So let's go for it. First thing we need to do is we need to declare an integer key. Now this is our key, and this will basically tell us where which element we're trying to insert. Alright? And for now I'll just declare an additional variable, integer I, that we're going to use in a second, but you'll see. Alright, so first of all we need to do a for loop. This is, so integer j equals 1. This is a for loop that's going to traverse the array. Now, since we're assuming that the first element of the array is already sorted, we can freely start at 1. So we're going to start with j at 1. J has to be less than the length of the array, and j plus plus. So this for loop is basically going to traverse the whole array and figure out if the elements are in their correct order or not. Now, so our first key, it's going to be the second element of the array, right? So remember that array indices, at least in Java, start at 0. So number 1, it's actually the second element of the array. I hope no one's getting confused here. Alright. So now the second element is the one we're going to try to sort. And then we're going to need to have a temporary variable, which is the one we're going to use to traverse the array, to figure out if the elements to its left are smaller, and we need to change them. So with that, we're going to add the I equals j minus 1, which is the first element of the array, basically. Now, the way we're going to actually search is we're going to add this while loop right here. We're going to check for two conditions. The first one, that I is greater than -1. Why is that? Alright, if I reaches -1, that means our array is out of bounds. We already searched all the array and the elements are already in the correct position, so there's no point in changing it. Now, if we're using -1 again, because remember the array indices reach down to 0, so we don't want to miss the 0 check. Right? Then the other thing, of course, we need to check is that the ith element, that one that we're moving around, it's greater than the key. So if it's greater than the key, so far we're good, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be always greater than the key, so we need to keep checking. So what we're going to do inside here is we're going to have basically this assignment right here to to be moving our index I in the array, searching for the value. So we basically move our hole where we can insert something, and in here we're just basically doing the same thing, just updating the value of I, so we can keep moving to the left. Now when this condition is not happening, it means that you found a new place for your key. So the way we're going to interpret that, it's basically I plus 1, and this is going to be equals to our new key. Right? I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but I don't want to make this video too long. Alright, and basically we just finished our insertion sort. Now let me change something real quick right here. We're gonna do system.out.println, and we're gonna call this before sorting, and we're gonna copy these two lines down here after our for loop that actually does the sorting, and we're gonna call this after sorting, printing array again. Now if we run it, we click OK, and now we can see all our elements are sorted down here. Probably we just want to add a space right here so that this formatting doesn't look nasty. And well, we can add 100 elements or whatever elements we want. And here we go, insertion sort. Now, this is also really important. If you don't really get what's going on or how to explain this really small piece of code, remember that you can do debugging. So we're gonna do a really quick debug just so you get familiarized with it and you can clear out any doubts that you have. So I'm gonna click here, right click, and toggle breakpoint. You should see this thing right here. Now I'm gonna go. Remember, this is just with Eclipse. Different compilers have different ways of doing this. And I'm just gonna click debug insertion sort. That's fine. And this is basically just to turn to the debug window, which it's a little different. Now, in this window here, we know where our code stopped, and we're gonna walk step by step. Here is basically our initial array, right? Our original array. We stopped here, and with this button right here, we can click and jump over some steps. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, j it's equal to 1. It's still less than the length of a. Now we're gonna assign the key to a of j, which is the second element. So our key is 80, represented by this. Then our while loop is going to check, so I it's equals to 0, so it's greater than -1, and AI, so our AI element, which is basically 51, or 0 in the array, is greater than the key, which is false. Then we're going to skip the while loop, and we're going to change the key to our next element. So go again for the for loop, j it's equals to 2. Our key is now 47, which is this element. So far, this side of the array is sorted. And we're going to do it again. We're going to compare 47 to 80. So even though I, it's greater than -1, because I, by now, should be equals to 1. Well, it also turns out that A1, which is the element left to our key, which is 80, it is actually greater than our key. So that means we need to move our 47. So we're going to get into the while loop. And what we're going to do here, it's basically, you see, we copied the value. We moved the 80 to our right. And then we changed the index of I. And we're going to try again. So I is equals to 0. It's still greater than -1. So let's try it again. The index, it's 80. I mean, it's 47. The key is 47, which is still greater than 51. So we swap again, update the index. Now I is no longer greater than -1. I is equal to -1. So as it turns out, we update our key, and now we have, and here's our array sorted. So we can keep doing that. You can keep checking each element. And it's basically going to be, you can see it right here how it's being sorted. But the procedure is always the same since it's a loop. So thank you very much, and I hope you learned something useful today. Thank you.